Welcome to Episode 4, Bison in Our Backyard at Theodore Roosevelt National Park, North Unit. Theodore Roosevelt National Park is one of the least visited large national parks in the United States. Join us as we hang out in the North Unit of Theodore Roosevelt National Park. In the last episode, we visited the South Unit of Theodore Roosevelt National Park. In this episode, we'll visit the remote North Unit. We left the Cottonwood Campground at dawn in our van Scout and drove the South Unit Scenic Byway one last time prior to heading to Dickinson, North Dakota Walmart for supplies, and then on to the North Unit. From the Cottonwood Campground in the South Unit of the park, it is approximately 80 miles to the Juniper Campground. You take I-94 east to U.S. Highway 85 north, which is also known as Theodore Roosevelt Expressway. We exited onto Scenic Drive to the North Unit entrance. The Visitor Center was not open for the season yet, so we were unable to go in. The North Unit offers a 14-mile scenic drive called the North Unit Scenic Byway. It offers beautiful landscapes with rolling hills and deep canyons and dramatic rock formations. At the very west end of the scenic drive is the Oxbow Overlook. It has stunning aerial views of the Little Missouri River winding through the Badlands. It's just absolutely gorgeous, and it's definitely worth a stop. The Juniper Campground is really pretty isolated. We spent 3 days there. We just absolutely loved it. Each day, we slowly drove through the 14-mile scenic drive, stopping at the overlooks for good cell coverage, as we had very limited cell coverage in the campground. And we took walks and talked to our campground neighbors, meeting people from all over the U.S. and several people from Germany. One of our favorite parts of camping is seeing wildlife up close. The bison in the North Unit loved hanging out in the campground every night, grazing on the grass. They would hang out near the bathrooms to begin with, and I don't know why they did that because there was no really grass around there, but they did. And then they'd meander around the campsites. We even had to get into our van a couple of the nights as they walked right through our campsite. All the campers tried to stay out of their way as they are huge. Okay, so not every day is a perfect day in the van. On day 2 in the North Unit Campground, we tried starting the generator to charge the batteries, and well, it started, but it didn't produce any electricity. That's not good, because if we were going to stay off-grid during this trip, which is what we like to do, we needed to be able to run the generator. The first thought was, we tripped the breaker, which is what it happened to be. We did trip the breaker on the generator. And since this was a new to us van, we didn't just quite remember where that switch was. I crawled under the van, and it was not readily apparent just where it was located. We took the van to the highest overlook, and with some decent cell service, I Googled the generator switch location images, and Gordon called our favorite electrical RV guy. And between the photo online and the conversation with the electrician, we were able to find the switch, flip it, and run the generator and produce electricity. Let me tell you, we had a few tense moments over that one, but we were back to being able to be off-grid, and everybody was happy. The most unusual geological landscape in the North Unit was the Cannonball concretions. They are large, round stones that occurred when the mineral-rich water seeps down the gaps of the sediments of the butte that was nearby. The minerals are like glue, and they hold the sediments together, sometimes forming large stone spheres. As I said before, not every day in the van is perfect. When we drive, we love staying off the interstate highways as much as possible. We love driving the back roads of America. We love putting the cruise control on, and we love listening to audiobooks or music and just enjoy the desolation of the countryside. So when we were driving along to the national park, in the middle of a really desolated countryside, our cruise control shut off. And once again, panic set in. Because we know that this will be a very long trip without cruise control, since we were only on week 2 of our 6-week trip, and we had many thousands of miles to go. So we Googled it, and someone said in a thread that I found, said that maybe the sensors are dirty. So we stopped and we cleaned the sensors. We got back on the highway, and the cruise control still did not work. It didn't come back on. After a lot more reading, and then we even called Mercedes tech support, and they said, well, your sensors are dirty. And many miles of driving, many miles of driving, we figured out that the sensors do not, if they don't sense another vehicle for so many miles, and we don't know how many miles that is, the cruise control will shut off, thinking that the sensors aren't working properly. So, and then magically, after following another vehicle for about 15 minutes, they'll come back on. So, mystery was solved, and once again, panic was over, and we're back to being happy campers. Gordon and I thoroughly enjoyed Theodore Roosevelt National Park, both the South Unit and the North Unit. The views are spectacular, the wildlife abundant, and there weren't too many people. Of course, we were there pretty early in the season, and it is one of the least visited parks, but I highly recommend it. I can see why Theodore Roosevelt just loved it there. Thanks for watching Episode 4, Bison in Our Backyard at Theodore Roosevelt National Park North Unit. Please like and subscribe. The next episode we'll be visiting will be Glacier National Park. If you haven't watched our other video about Theodore Roosevelt National Park, South Unit, here's a link. Thank you so much.